Stepmom left her 3 kids with me for babysitting, and a few hours later, I hear CPS at the door. I opened it to find 2 workers with clipboards saying, "Someone reported child neglect at this address." My heart completely stopped. The kids were literally watching Bluey in the next room with juice boxes and goldfish crackers spread across the coffee table. They asked to come in. I didn't have a choice. They walked through every single room, checked the fridge, looked in the bathrooms, even opened the pantry. They checked the kids' hands and arms for marks. The youngest, who's 3, told them I made him mac and cheese with the dinosaur shapes and let him have 2 cookies. They talked to each kid separately in different rooms while I stood there shaking, wondering what the hell was happening. After what felt like forever, but was probably 20 minutes, they apologized. Completely false report. They said it happens sometimes. People make malicious calls. They told me the call came in at 2:47 p.m., about 25 minutes before they knocked on my door. Here's the thing that didn't sit right. My stepmom dropped these kids off at noon. She said she had doctor appointments and errands across town and would be back around 6 o'clock. 3 hours had passed without a single text or check-in, which was actually unusual for her. I called her the second CPS walked out my door. She answered on the first ring, which literally never happens. "Is everything okay? Are the kids fine?" she asked before I could even say hello. I told her what just happened. She went completely silent, not the normal pause when someone's thinking. Dead air for exactly 5 seconds. Then she said, "Oh my God, it must have been your mother. My mom lives in Arizona. I'm in Colorado. That's a 14-hour drive. Mom didn't even know I was babysitting today because I hadn't talked to her since Sunday night. I asked how mom would possibly know the kids were here. She said mom probably drove by and saw her car in my driveway. A 14-hour drive on a random Tuesday afternoon to spy on me and call CPS. I said that made absolutely no sense. She started talking faster, saying mom never liked her, never accepted the kids, probably wanted to cause problems between us. She was always jealous that the kids loved you. She said she'd come right over to talk about it. She showed up in exactly 12 minutes. For someone who was supposedly across town at multiple appointments, that was pretty impressive timing. While she was driving over, something clicked in my brain. I checked my phone timeline. The CPS call was logged at 2:47. My stepmom texted me at 2:51 asking, "How are my babies doing? Being good for you?" This was before I'd mentioned anything about CPS showing up. How did she know to check on them right after a CPS call unless she knew it was coming? I didn't say anything when she arrived. I let her keep talking. She went on about how mom must have done this, how mom was jealous of our relationship, how mom couldn't stand seeing her kids happy with me. She even suggested I should file a police report against mom for making a false report. She had this whole speech prepared. Then I opened my doorbell camera app. I pulled up the footage from that afternoon and watched it while she kept talking. At 2:43 p.m., a white SUV matching hers drove past my house slowly. Same license plate. It came back 2 minutes later, going the opposite direction, even slower this time. Then at 2:46, it parked 3 houses down on the same side of the street. I zoomed in. It was definitely her car. I watched her sit in that car for 4 minutes. Phone pressed to her ear, looking directly at my house. At 2:50, the car finally left. The CPS call was logged at 2:47. I turned my phone screen toward her. "Want to explain why you were parked outside my house at the exact time someone called CPS?" Her face completely drained of color. All the blood just left. She started stammering something about running errands nearby, just driving past to check on the house from the street. Through my window, I saw a car pull up. A woman got out, saw my stepmom's SUV, and her whole body went rigid. She walked straight to my door and knocked hard. I opened it. "Is she here?" The woman looked exhausted. I moved 3 streets over to get away from her. My stepmom appeared behind me. The woman's hands started shaking. "You called CPS on me 4 times. 4 times. My stepmom smiled. "You deserved it." The woman slapped her across the face. The sound echoed in my doorway like a gunshot. My stepmom stumbled backward, hand flying to her cheek, eyes wide with shock. I just stood there frozen, honestly not sure what to do. The neighbor was breathing hard, her hand still raised like she might do it again. "Get inside," I said to both of them. "Now." My stepmom recovered first, that smile creeping back onto her face even though her cheek was turning bright red. "You just assaulted me. I could call the police right now." "Go ahead," the neighbor said, voice shaking but firm. "I'd love to explain to them why." I ushered them both into my living room, away from the kids who were still watching TV in the den. The 3-year-old peeked around the corner, and I gave him my best everything's fine smile and told him to keep watching his show. I heard him padding back to the couch. Once we were alone in the living room, I turned to my stepmom. "Why?" I asked directly. "Why would you call CPS on me?" "On her?" I gestured to the neighbor. "What is wrong with you?" My stepmom's eyes filled with tears instantly, like someone flipped a switch. "I was testing you," she whispered, voice breaking. "I had to know if you were responsible enough. The kids, they love you so much, and I just needed to see if you could handle the pressure. If you'd panic, or if you'd stay calm and—" "That's insane," I interrupted. "You filed a false report with Child Protective Services to test me?" "They love you more than me," she said, and her voice cracked on the last word. "I see the way they light up when you walk into a room. I needed to know you actually deserved it." The neighbor let out a bitter, hollow laugh. "That's what she told herself about me too, I bet." She turned to me, eyes hard. I was the 7-year-old's ballet teacher. That's it. I taught her dance twice a week for 3 months. The kid was talented, sweet, always excited to be there. Then one day, out of nowhere, her mom pulls her out of class. No explanation, no warning. A week later, CPS shows up at my house saying I left children unattended in a parking lot. My stomach turned. But you didn't. Of course I didn't. I run a professional studio with liability insurance and security cameras. I've been teaching for 12 years without a single incident, but they still had to investigate. They interviewed every parent whose kid I taught, went through all my certifications, did a complete background check. It was absolutely humiliating. She looked at my stepmom with pure hatred burning in her eyes. Then it happened again 2 months later. Different accusation this time, then again, and again. 4 times in 18 months. I was protecting the children, my stepmom said quietly, but there was something rehearsed in her tone, like she'd practiced this explanation. From what? I demanded. From a ballet teacher? From me watching them for an afternoon? She didn't answer, just stared at her hands, tears still streaming down her face. The neighbor continued, and I could hear the rage barely contained beneath her words. After the 3rd investigation, I hired a lawyer, started documenting absolutely everything. That's when I found out there were 2 other women in this neighborhood who'd had similar experiences after spending time with those kids. One was a mom from Lily's class who used to host playdates. Another was a woman from their church who ran Sunday school. Both got visits from CPS within weeks of bonding with the kids. Both had their lives completely turned upside down, and both stopped talking to this family entirely afterward. I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. You've been systematically isolating these kids from anyone who cares about them. My stepmom stood up abruptly, knocking her chair backward. That's not fair. I love those children more than anything in this world. Everything I do is for them. Then explain the pattern, I said, staying seated, forcing myself to stay calm. Explain why every woman who bonds with these kids suddenly gets reported for child abuse or neglect. She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. Then the tears came harder. You don't understand what it's like. I can't have children of my own. We tried for 2 years. Every treatment, every procedure, they all failed. These kids are all I have, and everyone keeps trying to take them from me. Nobody's trying to take them from you, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, I realized that wasn't true. In her mind, everyone was a threat. The neighbor grabbed her purse from the floor. I'm leaving. I just wanted you to know what she's capable of, what she did to me. She pointed at my stepmom with a shaking finger. You destroyed my reputation in this community. My business dropped by 40% after word got around about the investigations. Parents pulled their kids out of my classes. I almost lost everything I'd built. She looked at me. Be careful. She doesn't stop until she's eliminated the threat completely. After the neighbor left, the house felt oppressively quiet. I sat across from my stepmom, watching her cry into her hands. Part of me genuinely felt sorry for her in that moment. She looked small and broken and lost. But a much bigger part of me was absolutely terrified of what she was actually capable of. You need to leave, I said finally, my voice softer than I felt. Gather the kids and go home. Can we please talk about this? She asked, looking up at me with red, swollen eyes. Please? I just want to explain properly. There's nothing to explain. You filed a false CPS report on me. You've done it to multiple people. I don't trust you anymore. I need you to leave. She stood without another word and walked to the den. I heard her quietly telling the kids it was time to go. The 7-year-old Lily came running to hug me goodbye. She wrapped her thin arms around my waist and squeezed tight. Are you mad at mommy? She whispered into my shirt. No, sweetie, I lied, hugging her back. Everything's fine. I'll see you soon, okay? But as I watched them walk to the car, as I saw my stepmom buckle each kid into their seat with practiced efficiency, I knew everything was absolutely not fine. This was so much bigger than I'd realized. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying everything in my mind. The timeline, the doorbell footage, the neighbor's testimony, the pattern emerging from the chaos. Around 2 a.m., I finally called my dad. He's the one who married my stepmom 4 years ago, making me technically her stepkid even though I'm 26 and haven't lived at home since college. The kids, Lily, the 5-year-old boy, and the 3-year-old, are from his first marriage. My half-siblings, though I've never thought of them that way. They're just my siblings. We need to talk, I said when he answered, his voice thick with sleep. In person, tomorrow morning. It's about your wife. What did she do now? He asked, and I could already hear the defensiveness creeping in. Just come over, 9 o'clock. I'll explain everything. He showed up at 8:47, looking worried and exhausted. I'd barely slept either. I made coffee and we sat at my kitchen table while I laid it all out. The CPS visit, the doorbell camera footage showing her parked outside during the exact window when the call was made, her text arriving minutes after the call was logged, before I'd told her anything. The neighbor's story about 4 separate investigations over 18 months. I sent him screenshots, showed him the video, presented it all methodically like I was a prosecutor building a case. He sat there staring at his phone, his face getting progressively paler with each new piece of evidence. When I finally finished, he was quiet for what felt like 5 full minutes. She's been really stressed, he said eventually, and his voice sounded hollow. The fertility treatments didn't work. She's been depressed for months. I don't think she would actually— Dad, I cut him off. I have video evidence of her parked outside my house at the exact time the CPS call was made. This isn't speculation. Maybe she was just checking on things, making sure the kids were okay from a distance. By calling Child Protective Services and filing a false report claiming I was neglecting them, he rubbed both hands over his face, pulling his skin down until I could see the red underneath his eyes. I don't know what you want me to say here. I want you to acknowledge that your wife is terrorizing people. I want you to actually do something about it. doubt it. He looked up at me then, and I saw something in his expression that made my blood run cold. A kind of resigned knowledge. He already knew. Maybe not all the specific details, but he knew she was capable of this kind of thing. The kid's mom, I said slowly, watching his face. Their actual biological mother. Tell me about her. His whole body went rigid. Why are you asking about that? Because I'm starting to think this is about way more than jealousy. Your wife is territorial about those kids in a way that's not normal. Not even for a stepmother who loves them. Dad stood up and walked to my kitchen window, staring out at the street. She died 4 years ago. Car accident on Highway 36. She was a good mother. The kids loved her very much. And when did you meet your current wife? He didn't answer right away. I watched his shoulders tense. We met at a school event. She was volunteering in Lily's kindergarten classroom. When exactly? About 6 months after Jennifer's funeral. 6 months, I repeated. That's pretty fast. I was completely devastated, he said defensively, turning around to face me. The kids needed stability. She was there. She was kind. She helped us get through the worst period of our lives. What was I supposed to do? I'm not judging you for moving on, Dad. I'm asking if there's any possibility she knew you before Jennifer died, before the accident. He walked back to the table and sat down hard. What exactly are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. No, he said firmly, but his hands were shaking slightly. We met after Jennifer's death, at the school. Why would you even ask something like that? I didn't have a good answer yet, not a concrete one. But something about the way my stepmom talked about being the kid's real mom now, the desperation in her voice when she said they were all she had, the systematic way she eliminated anyone who got close to them, it all pointed to something deeper, something darker. After Dad left, still defensive and uncomfortable, I texted the neighbor, asked if we could meet again. She agreed immediately, suggesting the same coffee shop. We met that afternoon. She brought a thick folder with her, and when she opened it, I saw it was meticulously organized. Printed emails, official CPS reports, even a timeline she'd created documenting every single interaction she'd had with my stepmom alongside the dates of each false report. I became completely obsessed with proving it was her, she admitted, spreading the papers across our table. My lawyer told me that without concrete proof, there was basically nothing we could do. CPS won't reveal who makes reports. It's supposed to protect people making good faith calls. But I knew it was her. I looked through the documents. They were damning. This is insane. How is she not in jail for this? Because she's incredibly smart about it. She never leaves direct evidence, never admits anything in writing. The reports are always just vague enough that CPS has to investigate, but specific enough to be really damaging to the person's reputation. She knows exactly what words to use, exactly how to phrase things to trigger a mandatory investigation. Did you ever figure out why she targeted you specifically? What made you a threat? The neighbor nodded, her jaw tight. I think it was because of Lily. That little girl is something special, you know? She's talented, bright, incredibly sweet. And she attached to me really fast. Used to wait by the studio door 15 minutes before class started. Asked if she could call me Miss Katie instead of the formal Mrs. Henderson. Just normal kid stuff. She paused, staring into her coffee. But I think your stepmom saw every bit of that attachment as a direct threat to her position. She told me the kids love me more than her. Same thing she probably thought about me, about the Sunday school teacher, about the playdate mom. Anyone those kids bond with becomes a target for elimination. We sat there for 2 hours, and she walked me through everything she'd learned. By the time we left, I had a much clearer and much more terrifying picture of who my stepmom actually was beneath the surface. The next day, I did something I'm genuinely not proud of, but I felt like I didn't have a choice. I called my stepmom and apologized. Told her I'd completely overreacted, that I understood she was just being protective of the kids, that I wanted to talk things through properly and rebuild our relationship. She sounded so relieved it almost made me feel guilty. Almost. I'm so glad you called. I felt absolutely terrible about how things ended between us. Can we meet somewhere? Just the two of us? We agreed on coffee the next morning. I wore a jacket with deep pockets and made absolutely sure my phone was fully charged and set to record before I even left my house. She was already there when I arrived, sitting in a corner booth with 2 lattes waiting. She'd ordered for me. My usual order, vanilla latte with oat milk. Under different circumstances, it would have been a thoughtful gesture. Thank you so much for giving me another chance to explain, she said as I slid into the booth across from her. Her eyes were still a bit red, like she'd been crying recently. I smiled and tried to make it look genuine. Your family. We should be able to work through disagreements like adults. She visibly relaxed, her shoulders dropping from where they'd been hunched up near her ears. We made small talk for a few minutes. About the weather, about the kids, about nothing important. Then I gently started steering the conversation where I needed it to go. I've been thinking a lot about what you said yesterday, about testing me, about wanting to make sure I was responsible enough for the kids. I paused, took a sip of my latte. Have you had to do that with other people too? Test them, I mean? She nodded slowly, wrapping both hands around her coffee cup. Sometimes you have to protect children from people who aren't what they seem. Not everyone has good intentions. Like the ballet teacher, her expression darkened just slightly, a shadow passing over her face. That woman was getting way too close to Lily. She didn't understand appropriate boundaries with other people's children. What kind of boundaries was she crossing? She was trying to replace me, my stepmom said, and there was an edge to her voice now. I could see it happening. The way Lily talked about her constantly, like she was some kind of hero. Miss Katie said this. Miss Katie showed me that. Miss Katie thinks I'm talented. It was completely inappropriate for a dance teacher to be inserting herself into a child's life that way. So you called CPS on her to protect Lily? She took a long sip of her latte before answering. I had to make sure she was actually trustworthy, that she wasn't one of those people who gets close to children for the wrong reasons. You can't be too careful these days. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it in my ears, but I kept my voice steady and sympathetic. And when the first investigation didn't find anything wrong, then I called again, because I knew in my gut that something wasn't right. A mother's intuition is usually correct about these things. I could feel that she was dangerous. How many times did you call about her? She thought about it, like she was actually counting in her head. 4 times, I think. Maybe 5. But they finally got the message and she stopped teaching Lily. Problem solved. And how many other people have you had to call CPS on over the years? To protect the kids? She considered this, tilting her head slightly. A few, maybe 5 or 6 different people since I became the kid's mother. People who tried to get too close, who tried to insert themselves where they didn't belong. It's my job to protect them from that kind of thing. The recording app on my phone was getting all of this. Every single word. What about me? I asked. Was I getting too close? You're different, she said quickly, reaching across the table like she wanted to grab my hand. You're actual family, but I still needed to know you could handle real pressure appropriately, that you wouldn't panic and do something that would put the kids at risk. That's why she stopped herself. That's why you called CPS on me? As a test? She nodded. And you passed. You stayed completely calm. You took excellent care of them. You didn't fall apart. It showed me you really do care about those kids the right way. I wanted to throw my latte directly in her face. Instead, I leaned forward and tried to look sympathetic and understanding. That must be so incredibly hard, feeling like you constantly have to protect them from everyone around you. Her eyes filled with tears again. You have absolutely no idea. I can't have my own biological children. We tried for 2 solid years. Every treatment you can imagine. The hormone injections, the procedures, the doctors telling me month after month that it hadn't worked. The last doctor finally told me it's just not going to happen for me. She wiped at her eyes with a napkin. So these kids are literally all I have. They're my entire world. I can't let anyone take them away from me. Nobody wants to take them away from you. That's not true though, she said, voice rising slightly. Everyone wants a piece of them. Everyone thinks they know what's best for my children. Teachers, neighbors, even family members who think they can swoop in and be the favorite aunt or the cool babysitter who gives them whatever they want. But I'm their mother, not you, not some ballet teacher, not anyone else. Me. I'm the one who earned that role. I let the silence stretch out between us, giving her space to keep talking. Then I asked quietly, what about their actual biological mother? The one who died? Do you ever worry the kids will want her instead of you? Her entire face changed, went completely blank and expressionless. What about her? The kids must have loved her when she was alive. They must have memories. Do you ever worry they'll choose those memories over you? They were very young when she died. They barely remember her at all now. Lily was 3. That's old enough to have clear memories. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping loudly against the floor. I really need to go. Thank you for the coffee and the conversation. I gently grabbed her wrist before she could walk away. Wait, please. I'm sorry if I upset you. I didn't mean anything by it. Please sit back down. She hesitated, looking down at where my hand touched her arm. Then she slowly sat back down, but her entire body language had changed. Her guard was completely up now. I softened my voice even more, trying to recover. I'm genuinely just trying to understand what you've been through. You've dealt with so much. The fertility treatments failing, raising kids who aren't biologically yours, always dealing with the ghost of their biological mother hanging over everything. It must be completely overwhelming sometimes. She nodded slowly, and I saw her shoulders relax just slightly. Nobody really gets it. Everyone judges me for being protective, but they don't understand what it's actually like. Those kids mean more to me than anything else in the entire world. More than my marriage, more than my own life. I would literally do anything for them. I can see that, I lied smoothly. You'd do absolutely anything to protect them. Anything, she agreed firmly. I'd protect them from anyone who tried to hurt them or take them away from me, no matter what I had to do. Even if it meant making really difficult calls, hard decisions that other people might not understand. Especially then, she said. That's what a real mother does. She makes the hard calls that nobody else is willing to make. I had everything I needed. The recording was crystal clear. Her admissions were explicit and damning. I finished my coffee and told her I'd see her soon for a family dinner, gave her a hug that made my skin absolutely crawl, and walked out of that coffee shop. In my car, I immediately texted my dad. We need to talk again. Today. This is urgent. Come over as soon as you can. He showed up at my house that evening looking worried and tired. I didn't waste any time. I pulled out my phone and played him the entire recording, all 43 minutes of it. He listened in complete silence, his face going through about 15 different expressions. When the recording finally ended, he just sat there staring at my phone like it might explode. She admitted it, I said into the silence. She admitted she's been calling CPS on people for years. She literally said she sees anyone who bonds with the kids as a threat that needs to be eliminated. She needs serious professional help, Dad. He didn't say anything for a long, long time. Then he put his face in his hands and started crying. Not quiet tears, but completely broken sobs that shook his whole body. I knew, he whispered through his hands. Not all of it, not the full extent, but I knew she was obsessive about the kids. I knew she was territorial. I just didn't know she was actively hurting other people. How long have you known she had a problem? He looked up at me with red eyes. About a year, maybe longer. She She threatened to leave me last summer if I let Jennifer's parents visit the kids. Said they were trying to poison the kids against her, trying to make them remember their real mom, instead of accepting her as their mother. I felt sick to my stomach. And you stayed with her anyway, knowing she was that unstable? I thought it was grief, he said weakly. I thought she'd eventually work through it and get better. And the kids genuinely do love her. I didn't want to disrupt their lives all over again after they'd already lost their biological mother so tragic. So you just enabled her to keep destroying. He flinched like I'd slapped. I didn't know it was this bad. I swear I didn't know. Before I could respond, my doorbell rang. I'd texted the neighbor earlier, asking her to come by around this time if she could. She walked in, saw my dad sitting at the table, and her entire jaw clenched with barely controlled anger. You must be the husband, she said cold. Dad stood up awkwardly. I'm so sorry for what she did to you. I didn't know. You didn't know, or you didn't want to know. She pulled out her thick folder and slammed it down on my coffee table hard enough to make both of us jump. 4 CPS investigations. 4 separate times I had social workers in my questioning my inspecting every corner of my life, treating me like a little child abuser. 4 times I had to take time off hires, defend myself against accusations your wife. And you're telling you didn't know? Dad picked up the folder with shaking hands and started reading through the documents. Each report laid out accusations that were specific enough to trigger mandatory investigations, but vague enough that there was never any hard evidence. Claims about leaving children unsupervised, inappropriate discipline tech, unsafe studio conditions, all completely fabricated. One of these investigations almost resulted in my own kids being temporarily removed from my care, and her voice was shaking. They wanted to place the mother did the assessment. My mother lives 3 hours in Junction. My kids would have had to change schools in the middle of the leave all their friends, leave their home, all because your wife decided I was some threat to chill was teaching to dance. Dad said again, but it sounded completely hollow, meaningless. Sorry doesn't fix anything. Sorry doesn't give me back the clients I lost when word spread through the community that I was under investigation for child endangerment. Sorry doesn't erase the absolute fear my kids felt when strangers came to our house asking them invasive questions about whether mommy ever hurt them. I watched my dad just completely crumble in real time. Part of me genuinely felt bad for him, but a much bigger part of me was furious that he'd let this situation continue for so long without doing anything meaningful to stop it. What are you actually going to do now? The neighbor demanded, crossing her arms. Are you going to take real action, or are you just going to talk to her and get her some therapy and let her keep destroying people's lives? I'll make sure she gets help, Dad said weakly. I'll insist she sees a therapist, works through whatever's causing this behavior. She needs way more than therapy, I interrupted. She needs actual consequences. She broke the law, multiple times. She filed false reports with a government agency. She's my wife. She's the kid's mother. She's not their mother, the neighbor said sharply. She's a woman who's so desperate to own those children that she's willing to destroy anyone who shows them basic human kindness. That's not motherhood. That's dangerous obsession. Dad's phone suddenly buzzed on the table. He looked down at it and all the color drained from his face. She's on her way here, right now, with all the kids. She says she wants to have a family dinner so we can all move past the drama. You told her we were meeting? I asked, genuinely incredulous. No, I swear I didn't tell her anything. I don't know how she... He stopped mid-sentence, realization dawning. She tracks my phone. I completely forgot. There's an app we both have installed, supposedly for safety reasons, but she checks my location constantly throughout the day. Of course she does, the neighbor muttered under her breath. 20 minutes later, my stepmom knocked on my front door. She had all 3 kids with her, and they came bounding inside excitedly like this was a fun surprise visit. The 7-year-old hugged me tight, the 5-year-old proudly showed me a drawing he'd made at school, and the 3-year-old immediately asked if I had more of the dinosaur-shaped mac and cheese he liked. My stepmom was all smiles and warmth, acting like everything in the world was perfectly normal and fine, like we hadn't just spent the last 3 days systematically unraveling her entire pattern of abuse and manipulation. I brought pizza for everyone, she announced cheerfully, holding up 2 large boxes. I thought we could all eat together. The kids have been asking about you constantly. Dad stood frozen in my living room like a deer in headlights. The neighbor had moved into the kitchen, staying out of direct sight, but definitely not leaving. I could practically feel the tension radiating off everyone except the kids, who were completely oblivious and happy. During dinner, my stepmom was the picture of a perfect mother. She carefully cut the 3-year-old's pizza into small, manageable pieces. She reminded the 5-year-old to use his napkin. She complimented Lily on her excellent table manners. To any outside observer, she looked like a completely normal, loving mom having dinner with her family. But I kept catching the looks she was giving Dad. The way her smile would tighten almost imperceptibly when he didn't immediately respond to her questions. The way her hand gripped her fork just a little too hard when Lily casually mentioned wanting to go back to ballet classes. Ballet is really expensive, sweetie, she said smoothly, not missing a beat, and you didn't seem to enjoy it that much toward the end. But I loved it, Lily protested, looking confused. I told you like 100 times I wanted to go back. You also said Miss Katie was mean to you sometimes, remember? Lily's face scrunched up. No, I didn't. I never said that ever. My stepmom's smile never wavered even slightly. Yes, you did, honey. You told me she yelled at you for not pointing your toes correctly during practice. That literally didn't happen, Mom. I never said that. I stayed quiet, just watching this interaction play out, watching my stepmom casually rewrite reality right in front of a child who knew better but was being systematically gaslit. Well, regardless of what you remember, we're not going back to that particular studio, my stepmom said with absolute finality. Then she turned to me, still smiling pleasantly. You know, I've been doing a lot of research lately on something called parental alienation. Did you know it's actually considered a form of child abuse? When family members or outside people try to turn children against their parents? Dad's fork clattered loudly onto his plate. I've been reading about it extensively. she continued, like she was discussing a really interesting book club novel. All the warning signs to watch for, red flags that indicate someone might be trying to damage the parent-child relationship. It's really opened my eyes to some concerning behaviors I've been noticing lately. What kinds of behaviors? I asked carefully, keeping my voice neutral. Oh, you know, when kids spend too much time with one particular person and start clearly preferring them over their actual parent. When family members start openly questioning parenting decisions or suggesting they somehow know better than the parent. Little things that seem innocent on the surface but actually add up to a pattern of alienation. She took a bite of her pizza. I think we need to be much more careful going forward about who the kids spend significant time with, for their emotional well-being and stability. The neighbor chose that exact moment to step into view from the kitchen doorway. My stepmom's face went absolutely sheet white. What is she doing here? My stepmom asked, standing up so fast her chair scraped loudly against my floor. She's here because we're having a very important conversation, I said calmly. One that you're going to be part of whether you like it or not. The kids looked confused and increasingly nervous. Lily grabbed her dad's hand under the table. Is everything okay? She asked quietly. Kids, why don't you all go watch TV in the other room for a little while? Dad said, his voice barely above a whisper. The adults need to talk privately for a few minutes. They left reluctantly, the 3-year-old looking back over his shoulder with worried eyes that made my heart hurt. Once they were safely out of earshot, my stepmom turned on Dad with pure fury in her eyes. You invited her here? After everything she's done to try to damage this family? Everything I've done, the neighbor said, and her voice was shaking with barely controlled rage. You called CPS on me 4 separate times. You systematically tried to destroy my entire life because your stepdaughter enjoyed my dance class. My stepmom's face hardened like stone. I protected my child from someone who was clearly mentally unstable. The fact that you're standing here now, ambushing me in someone else's home, kind of proves I was right to be concerned. We have recordings, I said flatly. Multiple recordings of you admitting to everything. She looked at me, and that smile came back. Recording someone without their consent is actually illegal in Colorado. You can't use any of that against me in any legal proceeding. Actually, the neighbor said, pulling out her phone, Colorado is a one-party consent state for recordings. As long as one person in the conversation knows it's being recorded, it's completely legal and admissible. My stepmom's smile faltered for maybe half a second. Then it came back even brighter than before. You really think anyone will believe you over me? I'm their mother. I've been raising those children for 4 years, been there for every single moment of their lives. You're just a bitter dance teacher with an obvious vendetta and a family member who clearly has boundary issues. Who do you honestly think CPS will side with? She pulled out her own phone and started swiping through it. I've been documenting concerning behavior for weeks now, actually. Pictures of this house looking absolutely chaotic when the kids were here. She turned the screen to show me photos of my living room with toys scattered everywhere, dishes in the sink, normal lived-in chaos that happens when you're watching 3 kids. Text message conversations taken out of context that suggest you might not be fully fit to watch children unsupervised. She showed screenshots of messages where I jokingly complained about the kids being exhausting, completely normal venting that she'd apparently been saving and cataloging. I've been building a comprehensive file on you for weeks, just in case you tried to pull something exactly like this. My blood ran completely cold. She'd been planning this for weeks, maybe months. She'd been setting up her defense long before I even knew there was a problem. And you, she turned to the neighbor with cold eyes. Everyone in this community knows you're obsessed with my family. You moved 3 streets over, but you're still constantly stalking us, still trying to insert yourself into our lives. That's textbook harassment. I could easily file a restraining order. The neighbor's hands were visibly shaking. You're completely insane. I'm a mother protecting her children, my stepmom said with chilling calm, and I will do absolutely whatever it takes to keep them safe. Dad finally found his voice. This has to stop. You can't keep doing this to innocent people. She turned to face him with a look that genuinely made my skin crawl. Doing what exactly? Being a good mother? Keeping dangerous and unstable people away from our vulnerable children? I thought you wanted what was best for them. This is not what's best. Then maybe you're not what's best for them either, she snapped, cutting him off. Maybe I need to start seriously questioning whether you're actually fit to be their father if you can't even recognize obvious threats standing right in front of you. The entire room went absolutely dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Are you seriously threatening to try to take the kids from him? I asked slowly. She smiled, and it was the most terrifying expression I've ever seen on a human face. I'm saying that if he can't support my decisions as their mother, then maybe we need to completely reevaluate our entire family structure. Those kids love me. They need me desperately. I'm the one who's actually been here raising them every single day, caring for them, meeting their every need. Not him with his 60-hour work weeks. Not you with your occasional babysitting. Not some dance teacher they saw twice a week for 3 months. Me. Only me. You didn't raise them from birth, Dad said quietly, and there was something breaking in his voice. They had a mother. A real mother who loved them more than anything. Her entire face transformed in an instant. The mask dropped completely, and pure rage flooded her features. Their real mother was pathetically weak. She couldn't handle the basic responsibilities of being a parent. She caught herself mid-sentence, but it was way too late. She what? I pressed immediately. My stepmom's chest was heaving. Nothing. Just forget it. No, you were about to say something specific about their mother, about how she died. It was a car accident. Everyone already knows that. But you knew her before the accident happened, didn't you? The question hung in the air like a bomb about to detonate. Dad was staring at his wife like he'd never actually seen her before in his entire life. I met her a few times, my stepmom said carefully, and I could see her trying to calculate her words. At school events, We weren't friends or anything. That's not what you implied earlier. I lied deliberately. You said she confided in you about her struggles, about feeling like she was failing as a mother. Her eyes went wide. She knew she'd been trapped. I meant I could see from the outside that she was struggling. Anyone could have seen it if they were paying attention. How could you see it if you barely knew her? I volunteered regularly at the school. I saw her dropping the kids off most mornings. She always looked completely exhausted, stressed beyond belief. She'd constantly forget things. Permission slips, snacks for class parties, proper lunches. It was painfully obvious to everyone that she wasn't coping well with basic parenting. And you told my dad about your concerns? I looked directly at him. Did you know Jennifer was struggling this badly? Dad shook his head slowly, looking completely lost. She was fine. She was a great mom. She wasn't perfect. Nobody is. But she certainly wasn't falling apart the way you're describing. So either she was actively hiding her struggles from you, my stepmom said quickly, or you just weren't paying enough attention to notice. Which one is it? But something in her tone was desperately off. She was scrambling now, trying to regain control of a narrative that was slipping away from her. When exactly did you first meet Jennifer? I asked directly. Your timeline keeps changing every time you tell the story. I don't remember exactly. It was a few months before the accident, I think. Months? Earlier today, you explicitly told me you met Dad 6 months after the funeral, and that was your very first encounter with this family. She visibly realized her mistake, opened her mouth, closed it. I must have misspoken earlier. I was upset. Or you're lying right now, the neighbor said flatly. My stepmom whirled on her. Get out of this house right now. This is a private family matter and you have no right to be here. I'm not going anywhere. I want to hear every word of this. I said get out! My stepmom actually lunged toward the neighbor, and Dad had to physically catch her arm to stop her. Stop it! He shouted, louder than I'd ever heard him. Just stop all of this! She jerked her arm away from him violently, breathing hard, eyes wild and unfocused. You're all against me, every single one of you. You're trying to turn the kids against me, trying to make me look crazy and unfit, but I'm not crazy. I'm their mother. I'm the one who's been there for them literally every single day. Since when? I pushed harder. Since 6 months after their mom died? Or since before? Before what? Before Jennifer died. The words landed like a grenade in the middle of the room. My stepmom went completely, utterly still. Dad's face had gone gray. What exactly are you saying? Dad whispered. I'm asking when your wife actually first met Jennifer, because something about the timeline she keeps giving doesn't make any sense at all. My stepmom's hands were visibly shaking now. I barely knew her. We definitely weren't friends. I saw her around the school sometimes when I was volunteering. That's literally it. But you knew she was struggling mentally. You knew she felt like a failure as a parent. You knew intimate, personal details about her emotional state. How could you possibly know those things? I could just tell from observing her, she said, but her voice was barely audible. Did you actually talk to her? Did she confide in you directly? She mentioned some things, once or twice, just in passing. What specific things did she mention? That she was tired all the time, that motherhood was harder than she'd expected it would be, normal stuff that mothers talk about with each other. And when exactly was this? I don't know precisely. A few months before the accident, I guess. And you didn't think to tell anyone? Didn't think to tell Dad that his wife was seriously struggling? She looked at Dad desperately, then back at me. It wasn't my place to get involved. I didn't know her nearly well enough to interfere in her marriage. But you knew her well enough that she was confiding her deepest insecurities and failures to you? Stop twisting everything I say. I'm just trying to understand the actual truth, I said calmly. Because it really sounds like you knew Jennifer pretty well. Well enough that she told you she was failing. Well enough that you were volunteering at the school regularly and seeing her constantly. Well enough that you knew exactly when to swoop in and offer support after she died. I helped a grieving family who desperately needed it, she said through clenched teeth. I saw people in terrible pain and I offered whatever support I could provide. There is absolutely nothing wrong with that. No, Dad said slowly, standing up from his chair. There isn't anything wrong with that, unless you're deliberately leaving out important parts of the story. She looked at him with tears streaming down her face. I love those kids more than my own life. I love you. Why are you doing this to me? Did you know me before Jennifer died? He asked directly, his voice steady now. We met at the school after. That's not what I asked you. The silence stretched out so long I thought she might not answer at all. Then very quietly, I knew who you were. I'd seen you at morning drop-off a few times over the months. We'd never actually spoken directly, but you had spoken to Jennifer, my wife. A few times, just casual conversation about kid stuff. About what specifically? I don't remember all the details. School stuff, kid stuff, normal parent things. Did she tell you she was depressed? She said she was tired a lot. Did she tell you she felt like a complete failure as a mother? My stepmom's entire face just crumpled. Yes, she did tell me that. She said she loved her kids desperately, but sometimes she felt like she was drowning. Like she couldn't do it anymore. Like maybe they'd genuinely be better off without her. The room went ice cold. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. When did she tell you that? A few weeks before the accident. And you didn't think to tell me? To tell anyone who could have helped her? I thought she was just venting normal frustrations. Mothers say things like that all the time when they're overwhelmed. I honestly didn't think she meant it literally. She died in a single car accident, Dad said, and his entire voice was shaking now. She drove her car off the Highway 36 bridge in the middle of a clear afternoon. The police said there were no skid marks at all, no evidence she even tried to brake. They investigated it as a possible— He couldn't finish the sentence. My stepmom was crying openly now, and for the first time it looked like real grief. I didn't know. I swear on everything I didn't know she'd actually do it. I thought she was just tired and overwhelmed. I thought if I gave her some space and time to herself, she'd be okay. What do you mean gave her space? I asked, and my heart was pounding. She wiped her eyes with shaking hands. I offered to watch the kids for her that day, told her she should take the whole afternoon for herself, do something relaxing. She said she couldn't, that she had too much to do. I insisted, told her she absolutely deserved a break. She finally agreed to let me pick the kids up from school and keep them for a few hours. When I brought them back to the house that evening, your father was already on the phone with the police. She looked at Dad with devastated eyes. She'd been dead for 3 hours by that point. It happened right after she dropped the kids at school that morning. But you just said you picked the kids up from school, I pointed out carefully. I did pick them up. She dropped them off in the morning like normal, and I picked them up in the afternoon. We'd arranged it that morning before school started. Why would she arrange for you to pick up her kids if she was planning to? I stopped, really looking at my stepmom's face, seeing something there I genuinely hadn't seen before. Grief. Real, deep, devastating grief. You actually cared about her, I said slowly, realization dawning. Jennifer wasn't just some random acquaintance. You were actually real friends with her. My stepmom nodded, tears streaming steadily down her face now. She was genuinely kind to me. I was new to the area, new to the school, didn't know anyone at all. She was the very first person to actually talk to me, to invite me to sit with her at school events. We started meeting for coffee sometimes, talking about life and struggles. She told me things she said she couldn't tell anyone else, about how hard her marriage had become, how exhausting and endless motherhood felt, how she felt like she was slowly disappearing into her role and losing herself completely. Dad looked like someone had shot him. She never told me any of that, because you were part of the problem, my stepmom said, then immediately looked like she desperately wanted to take it back. I'm so sorry, but she told me you worked constantly, that you didn't understand how absolutely exhausting it was being home alone with 3 kids under 7, that when you finally came home at night you were tired and just wanted to relax, and she felt like she could never relax, could never stop being mom for even a single moment. So you thought you'd be a better mother than her? No! She shook her head violently. No, I thought I could help her. I thought if I could just give her regular breaks, show her it didn't have to be quite so impossibly hard all the time, she'd be okay. But then she died and I couldn't stop thinking about all the warning signs I must have missed, all the times she'd hinted that she couldn't do it anymore, and I just brushed it off as normal mom stress and exhaustion. So you decided to take her place, I said quietly. I decided to make sure those kids never felt what I felt growing up, she said intensely. I grew up with a mother who was emotionally distant, who clearly didn't want to be a parent, who made it painfully obvious every single day that we were a burden she resented. When she finally left our family, I promised myself that if I ever had kids of my own, I'd be completely different. I'd be the mother I'd always wished I'd had. But I can't have biological children. The universe made that brutally clear. So when these specific kids desperately needed a mother, and I was already right there, already loving them, already grieving their mother alongside them, it felt like fate. Like maybe this was exactly why I couldn't have my own, because I was meant to be theirs instead. The obsession made so much more sense now. In her deeply twisted mind, she hadn't stolen someone else's children. She'd been given a second chance at the motherhood she'd always desperately wanted, and losing it would mean losing absolutely everything that gave her life meaning. But that still doesn't justify what you've done to people, Dad said firmly, calling CPS repeatedly, making false reports, systematically destroying people's lives and reputations. I was protecting them, she insisted desperately. Every single time someone got too close to the kids, I saw their biological mother in them. I saw her getting attached to people who'd eventually leave or disappoint or hurt her, just like her own mother did to her, just like my mother did to me. I couldn't let that same pattern happen to these innocent kids. So you pushed everyone away preemptively. I kept them safe from inevitable pain and abandonment. You kept them isolated and controlled, the neighbor corrected sharply. You're so absolutely terrified of them experiencing any kind of loss that you're making sure they can't meaningfully connect with anyone except you. That's not protection. That's control and manipulation. My stepmom's face hardened again instantly. You have no idea what you're talking about. I understand that you filed provably false reports against at least 6 different people. That's a serious crime. Multiple serious crimes, actually. Then prove it was me. I pulled out my phone. We have you on recording admitting to all of it, in a conversation I didn't know was being recorded, where I was clearly under emotional duress and being manipulated. That's not how the law works in this state. We'll see what the police and lawyers actually say about that. She stood up and called loudly for the kids. They came running from the other room, the 3-year-old asking if they were going home now. Yes, baby, we're leaving right now. Say goodbye to everyone. Dad stood up too. We need to talk about this more seriously. You can't just leave like this. Watch me. She started actively gathering the kids, hustling them toward the front door. I'll file for custody, Dad said suddenly, and his voice was stronger than I'd heard it all night. If you don't agree to get serious professional help, if you don't stop this destructive behavior immediately, I will fight you for full custody of those kids. She turned around very slowly. On what possible grounds? I'm a completely perfect mother. I've dedicated my entire life to these children for 4 years. You work 60+ hours a week and barely even know what grade they're in. Who exactly do you think a family court judge will side with? The father who hasn't been systematically filing false police reports for years. Allegedly filing false reports, with supposed evidence obtained illegally through secret recordings that you can't actually prove I made. Good luck with that legal strategy. She opened my front door, then paused and looked back. Oh, and you might want to check your work email soon. I sent some very concerning messages to your boss earlier today about erratic behavior and possible substance abuse issues. Just covering my bases in case you tried anything stupid like actually going for custody. The kids will stay with me. They're mine. They've always been mine." She walked out with all 3 children, closing the door firmly behind her, leaving Dad, me, and the neighbor just standing in my living room in completely stunned silence. Dad collapsed onto my couch. "She's going to systematically destroy me. Only if we let her," I said. But honestly, I had absolutely no idea what our next move should be. She'd thought of everything, covered every possible angle, built cases against everyone who might challenge her. 2 days later, I got yet another call from CPS. The worker sounded absolutely exhausted. "We have another report filed regarding children at your address. This is the second report about you in the same week, which is highly unusual. We need to come back and conduct another investigation." "What's the accusation this time?" I asked, even though I already knew exactly who had called it in. "The report claims you've been actively coaching the children to lie about their home life, that you're deliberately attempting to alienate them from their mother for personal gain or revenge." I gave them my dad's contact information and told them about the established pattern of false reports. They listened patiently, but explained they were legally obligated to investigate every single claim thoroughly, regardless of the source or history. This investigation was noticeably quicker. They could clearly tell the report was completely baseless, but they also pulled me aside afterward and said something that made my blood run genuinely cold. "Ma'am, this is the 3rd report filed regarding this specific family in less than 2 months. We're starting to strongly suspect these are malicious calls, but we legally can't ignore them. However, if this pattern continues much longer, we may actually need to open a formal case regarding the children's overall welfare based solely on the sheer number of reports, regardless of whether they're valid or not. The frequency itself suggests a fundamentally unstable environment for these kids." So my stepmom was so absolutely determined to discredit me that she was willing to risk having CPS start investigating the kids' actual home environment. She was actively creating exactly the kind of chaos and documented instability that could genuinely harm them in the long run, all in the name of protecting them from imaginary threats. I called Dad immediately. "We need to force her hand somehow. Make her directly confront what she's actually doing." He agreed to help, but he sounded completely defeated. The email she'd sent to his boss had caused massive problems at his work. He was being formally questioned about his judgment and stability. She was systematically destroying his professional credibility and support systems, exactly like she'd done to everyone else who'd ever challenged her. We came up with a plan together. I'd invite her over one more time, pretending I wanted to apologize and move forward peacefully. I'd record everything again, and this time, I'd push way harder, get her to reveal even more. She arrived the next evening with a bottle of wine, all smiles again. She poured us both generous glasses and settled into my couch like we were old friends about to have a deep heart-to-heart. "I'm so glad you reached out again," she said warmly. "I absolutely hate when there's any tension in the family. The kids can sense it, you know." "I'm sure they can," I agreed carefully. "That's actually what I wanted to talk to you about, the kids and their overall well-being." "Of course. That's always my absolute top priority." "I know it is. I can genuinely see how much you love them, how much you've invested in being their mother." She relaxed completely, taking a slow sip of wine. "It's the single most important thing in my entire life, more important than literally anything else. Even more important than their late biological mother was to them." Her hand tightened noticeably on the wine glass. "What do you mean by that?" "I mean, they had a mother who loved them, who was their biological parent, who knew them from the moment they were born, and then you came in and took her place. I didn't take anything. She died. I filled a void that desperately needed filling. Right. After she told you she was struggling. After she confided in you about feeling like a failure. After you offered to help by taking the kids that specific day. I was trying to give her a break so she could recover. Were you really? Or were you trying to show her that you could do it better? That the kids didn't actually need her? They needed you." Her face flushed dark red. "That's absolutely not what happened." "Then what did happen? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you deliberately befriended a struggling mother, actively encouraged her depression and self-doubt, offered to take her kids for a day, and then when she killed herself, you immediately swooped in and claimed them as your own." She stood up fast, wine sloshing dangerously over the rim of her glass. "How dare you? I genuinely loved her. I tried desperately to help her. Did you? Or did you see an opportunity? I saw a woman in terrible pain, and I tried to be her friend. And when she died, you made absolutely sure no one else could ever be friends with her kids. Made sure every woman who tried to bond with them got systematically driven away with false accusations and CPS reports. Why? What are you so desperately afraid of?" "I'm not afraid of anything." "Yes, you are," I pressed. "You're absolutely terrified that if the kids bond with anyone else, they'll realize you're not actually their mother, that you're just a replacement, a substitute who happened to be in the right place at the right time. That's not true at all. Then why are you so desperate to eliminate everyone who gets close to them? Why can't you let them have other people in their lives who love them?" "Because everyone leaves," she shouted, and her voice cracked. "Everyone disappoints. Everyone fails them eventually. I'm the only one who won't. How can you possibly know that?" "Because I've already lost everything." Tears were streaming down her face now. "I can't have biological children. My own mother abandoned me. I've built my entire life and identity around being the perfect mother to these specific kids, because if I'm not that, then what am I? What's the point of any of this? So you destroy anyone who threatens that identity. I protect what's mine. They're not yours," I said very quietly. "They never will be. They're his. I gestured toward the doorway where Dad had just walked in silently, holding his phone, recording. And they were hers, their mother who died. They'll never be fully yours no matter how many people you systematically push away. She whirled around to see Dad standing there. She looked back at me, then at him, and her face went through about 6 different emotions before finally landing on pure, concentrated fury. You set me up, again. We documented you admitting to exactly what we've been accusing you of, Dad said steadily. Filing false reports, targeting innocent people who got close to the kids, actively trying to erase Jennifer from their lives and memories. I am their real mother now, she said, and her voice was low and dangerous. I'm the one who picks them up from school every single day, makes their lunches exactly how they like them, knows their favorite bedtime stories by heart, comforts them when they have nightmares about losing people. Not you with your 60-hour work weeks and constant business trips. Not some dead woman who couldn't handle the pressure of actually being present for them. Me. I'm the one who's here, who's real, who loves them enough to protect them from everyone who'd hurt them. Including me? Dad asked quietly. If necessary, yes. The admission hung in the air between them. She'd just explicitly threatened to protect the kids from their own biological father. I want a divorce, Dad said clearly. And I want full legal custody. She actually laughed. It was a horrible, broken sound. You'll never get it. I have extensive documentation of your drinking, your absences, your complete inability to prioritize your own children. I have proof that you've exposed them to unstable family members. She gestured at me. I have a lawyer already on retainer who specializes specifically in parental alienation cases. You don't stand even a remote chance. We have multiple recordings of you admitting to multiple felonies. Recordings obtained through deliberate deception that you'll never successfully get admitted in any court. And even if you somehow did, do you really want to drag those kids through a brutal custody battle? Put them on the witness stand, make them choose between parents, traumatize them all over again right after they already lost their biological mother? What kind of father does that to his own children? She had him. She knew exactly which buttons to push to paralyze him. But I wasn't done. What did you mean earlier when you said you waited for Jennifer to fail? She went very, very still. You said, I waited for her to fail. And she did. What exactly did you mean by that specific phrase? I meant exactly what I said. I watched her struggle and I waited to see if she'd pull through on her own. She didn't. But the way you phrased it sounded like you were waiting for a specific outcome. Like you actively expected her to fail. Of course I expected her to fail eventually. She literally told me herself she couldn't handle it anymore. It was only a matter of time before something broke. Did you encourage her to feel that way? Her eyes narrowed dangerously. What exactly are you implying? I'm asking if you actively worked to make her believe she was failing, pointed out her mistakes, highlighted how much better you were handling similar situations, made her feel progressively more inadequate so she'd spiral faster. That's completely insane, is it? Because you've spent the last 4 years systematically destroying the confidence of literally every woman who interacts with those kids. Why wouldn't you have started with their actual biological mother? I was her friend, her only real friend. Were you really? Or were you her replacement sitting in the wings, waiting for your chance? She slammed her wine glass down on the table so hard it shattered completely. Blood immediately welled up from a deep cut on her palm, but she didn't even seem to notice or care. You don't know what you're talking about. I loved her. I genuinely grieved her. And when those kids desperately needed a mother, I stepped up because absolutely no one else would. Because their father was too busy advancing his career to notice they were falling apart. Because their grandparents lived 3 states away. Because I was there and I cared, and I was the only one who could give them what they needed. What they needed was time to grieve properly, Dad said quietly but firmly. You didn't even let them finish grieving before you replaced her. I didn't replace her. I showed them that life could still be good, that they could still be happy, that they could have a mother who actually wanted to be there for them every single day. She wanted to be there, Dad said, and his voice was breaking now. She was just struggling. She needed help. If someone had told me how bad it actually was, I could have gotten her real help. She didn't want help, my stepmom said flatly. She wanted out. She explicitly told me that. Said she felt completely trapped. Said she'd have dreams about just driving away and never coming back. She was planning to leave all of you. The accident just happened first. That's a lie, Dad said, but he sounded uncertain now. Is it? Did you know she'd been secretly researching divorce lawyers online? That she'd opened a separate bank account you knew nothing about? That she'd been slowly moving money into it for 6 months before she died? Dad's face went absolutely white. How do you possibly know that? She told me everything. Showed me the account. Asked me if I thought she was a terrible person for wanting to escape. I told her no, that she deserved to be happy, that if she needed to leave, then she should leave. I even offered to help her however I could. Told her I'd watch the kids anytime she needed, give her space to figure out her next steps. I was trying to help her find her way out of a situation that was destroying her, not trap her. But she didn't leave, I said carefully. She died instead, because she realized she couldn't actually do it. Couldn't actually abandon her kids despite everything. The guilt ate her alive. So instead of leaving, my stepmom's voice broke completely. She made absolutely sure she couldn't change her mind. The room was silent except for the sound of her crying. She looked down at her bleeding hand like she'd just noticed it for the first time, grabbed a napkin from the table and wrapped it clumsily around her palm. I blamed myself for months afterward, she whispered. Thought if I'd just said the right thing, done something differently, she'd still be alive. But then I realized the best way to honor her memory was to give those kids the mother she couldn't be, to love them the way she should have loved them, to be everything she wasn't capable of being. That's not honoring her, I said. That's systematically erasing her from existence. She erased herself when she drove off that bridge, my stepmom screamed. She chose to leave them. I chose to stay. I'm the one who's been here every single day since then, proving that I'm the better choice, the right choice, the only choice that actually matters. You're not the better choice, Dad said quietly. You're just the one who is desperate enough to force yourself into a role you were never meant to have. She looked at him with absolute venom in her eyes. I earned this role. I put in the work. I sacrificed everything. And I'm not giving it up just because you've suddenly decided to pretend you actually care about being a father. I've always cared. No, you've always been conveniently absent. You let Jennifer drown in responsibility while you climbed the corporate ladder. You'd be doing the exact same thing to me if I let you. But I won't. Because unlike her, I'm strong enough to handle it. Strong enough to be both mother and father to those kids if that's what they need. She grabbed her purse and headed for the door. File for divorce if you want. Fight for custody. I'll bury you in court and take everything. The house, the savings, and especially the kids. They're mine. I've earned them. And I'm not letting anyone take them from me. Not you, not her. She gestured viciously at me. Not anyone. She left, slamming the door hard enough to rattle the windows. Dad sank into a chair, looking completely and utterly broken. She knew. She knew Jennifer was suicidal and she didn't tell me. She could have saved her life, and instead she apparently encouraged her to feel worse. We don't know that for absolute certain, I said, though I suspected it was true. We only have her version of events. But what if it's true? What if she really did push Jennifer over the edge and then swooped in to take her place like some kind of predator? Then we need to find actual proof, real proof, not just her admissions that she can explain away. I spent the next 3 days digging through everything I could possibly find. Old emails, phone records from 4 years ago, anything that might prove my stepmom had known my dad's first wife before the accident. I called the elementary school, asked about historical volunteer records from that time period, found out my stepmom had started volunteering there 8 full months before the accident, not 6 months after like she'd originally claimed. I finally tracked down the actual accident report. It confirmed there were no skid marks at the scene, but it also noted something I hadn't known. The victim's phone had been found in her purse, unopened, with 7 missed calls from an unknown number in the hour immediately before the accident, all from the exact same number. I got my dad to subpoena the full phone records through his lawyer. The unknown number belonged to my stepmom. She'd called 7 times in the single hour before Jennifer died. When we finally got the police to pull the complete records, we found text messages too. Messages that had been deleted from Jennifer's phone but were still recoverable from the service provider's backup systems. The messages were absolutely chilling. You can't even handle one day without falling apart. How are you going to handle years more of this? The kids deserve better than a mother who needs a break after 3 hours. Maybe you're right. Maybe they really would be better off without you. If you can't be the mother they actually need, someone else will have to step up. The final message, sent 10 minutes before the estimated time of the accident. Stop being selfish and do what's right for them. My dad read them and immediately threw up in my bathroom. I read them and felt my hands go completely numb. She'd done it. She'd systematically broken down a vulnerable woman until she saw suicide as her only remaining option. And then she'd taken her place. We took everything to the police that same day. They opened a formal investigation into the death, reclassified it from accident to suspicious. They brought my stepmom in for questioning, but she didn't crack. Claimed the messages were taken completely out of context, that she'd been trying to motivate her struggling friend through tough love, that the calls were her desperately trying to reach someone she was genuinely worried about. She had a calculated answer for absolutely everything. But the overall pattern was finally enough to get Dad emergency temporary custody. A judge looked at the concrete evidence of the multiple false CPS reports, the documented harassment of multiple women, the highly suspicious circumstances around the first wife's death, and ruled that the children needed to be immediately removed from her care, pending a full investigation. The day they actually took the kids from her, I was there. My stepmom fought like a wild, cornered animal, screamed that they were stealing her babies, that she was their real mother, that no one else could possibly love them like she did. It took 4 police officers to finally get her into the patrol car after she absolutely refused to let go of Lily's arm. She was arrested for resisting and disorderly conduct on top of everything else. As they drove away with her in the back seat, she was staring at me through the window, not at Dad, at me, and she was clearly mouthing words I could read. This isn't over. Dad got the kids settled at his place that same night. They were confused, scared, crying, kept asking when they could see Mommy again. He didn't know how to possibly explain that Mommy might have helped kill their real mom. How do you tell children something that devastating? The trial took many months. In the end, the evidence about the text messages and the systematic false CPS reports was enough to get her charged with harassment, filing false reports, and criminally negligent homicide. The investigation into Jennifer's death remained technically open, but inconclusive for murder charges. No direct proof of intent. No justice for a woman who'd been deliberately manipulated into her own death. But my stepmom lost custody permanently. The judge ruled she was psychologically unfit to parent and granted Dad full custody with only supervised visitation. She showed up to exactly 2 visits before her lawyer finally advised her to stop, because she kept trying to convince the kids that Dad was unfairly keeping them from her, that I was deliberately poisoning their minds. She was sentenced to 8 years in prison. At sentencing, she was given a chance to speak. She stood up, looked directly at Dad and me, and said, "I loved those children better than their real mother ever did. I still do. She was weak and I was strong. She gave up and I stayed. History will remember me as their mother." not her. The judge looked disgusted and added 2 more years for complete lack of remorse. As they led her away in handcuffs, she was smiling, still convinced she'd won somehow, still believing her own twisted delusion that love and ownership were the same thing.